Okay. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, August 25th meeting of the Reno County Commission. At this time, would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Commissioner Bush is with us by telephone today. Welcome, Commissioner Bush.
Thanks, Ron.
Next item of business is an update from our interim health officer, Karen Hammersmith, and the emergency management director, Adam Weishauer. Karen, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Just wanted to go an overview of our statistics. We have positive tested. We have 6,417 that were have tested positive in Reno County. We have 659 positive tests out of that, 5,758 negative tests. We have 186 active cases, 4 active clusters, 1 fatality. We have a positive test rate of 10.27% and a population tested of 10.21%. 472 are recovered. We have a community positive test rate that is lower at 6.83%, and that is due to the outbreak at the Hutchinson Correctional Facility.
Okay, and that's subtracting the correctional facility from the...
For the positive test rate.
10.2 gets you the 6.83.
Correct, yeah. We do see that trending higher at this point. I mean, that's what it is, but we are also looking at the cases that are coming in, and we do have more cases coming in. What we are doing is we're really working closely together with the medical community and then also with the superintendents to open schools. So the gating criteria that you've seen from how the Kansas Department of Education has turned out, we are working on a process on that so that we can get schools open. We're taking a common sense approach to that, looking at our hospital, what they can have. At this point in time, they have 65 patients in the hospital, 1 positive COVID patient, 3 persons of interest that could be, potentially positive, 0 in the ICU and 0 intubated. So that's good news for our hospital. We're really continuing to work on that. Dr. Pauly texted me this morning because he is working very closely with us and the superintendents. And we're really looking at increasing the testing in Reno County. So that is the plan that we're trying to do. What we have really started with this process is just testing anybody that has symptoms. So when you're only testing people that have symptoms, we're going to have a higher positive test rate. So by increasing the symptoms or increasing the testing rate and just testing patients that are asymptomatic and have not been in contact with anyone, we'd like to get that positive testing rate down to where the gating criteria that is set by KDHE and make it look that way. But we're trying to just continue to work on this and narrow everything down.
Okay, how will you do that increased testing, Karen? Will the clinic be involved in that?
The
or
clinic,
is the county
yes.
going to do that?
The clinic is doing most of that work. He wants to start just with populations. We know that the healthcare workers, a lot of them have been working with COVID patients, but yet wearing PPE. So he wants to get those tested first and then possibly educators.
This will not be a requirement.
No.
No. Mm-mm. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Other information this morning?
That's really what we've been working on this last week.
Can you or maybe Commissioner Hurst give us an update on the different schools? Maybe Joe can chime in on this.
our schools are going to be starting here, I think some as soon as this Thursday.
This week, Wednesday
So
and
USD
Thursday.
308, which is Hutchinson, starts this week.
What schools decided to not do complete mass? Does anybody have an update or a
I think Pretty Prairie Grade School is the only one that it's not a requirement, but it
Okay.
is recommended.
Okay, so you believe Fairfield went ahead with mass?
Yes, as far as I know, yes.
Okay. I knew I wasn't updated on that when, we spent so much time trying to make a decision and then found out the decision wasn't ours.
Wasn't ours,
Yeah,
you bet.
so.
I can't say how important it is, or I can't overemphasize how important it is to have in-class students. I just, from what we've seen last March, I don't know whether it's lack of discipline. It's tough for parents at home to try to make sure that their student or child gets 6 hours of face time with a computer. They need as the CDC recommended, they need to be in class.
We're doing everything we can to get them there.
Yeah.
So
Okay, there's no more questions of Karen. Adam, do you have items for us today?
Good morning, Commissioners. This will be just my typical update for you this morning. This is day 178. We started all the way back on March 1st. The Board of County Commissioners declared a public health emergency on March 19th, and that'll continue until December 31st of 2020. There's 104 counties in Kansas that have a current active disaster declaration in place, and there's 105 counties in Kansas, that's all 105, with active COVID-19 cases. So if you remember last week, there's 2 counties that didn't have them, well, they have them now. The Kansas Legislative Special Committee on the Kansas Emergency Management Act started meeting yesterday. They were actually on one of our conference calls yesterday afternoon. We still do not have any sort of update on the governor's declaration that's set to expire on September 15th, and that includes her executive orders as well. KDHE says there's an increase of 11 outbreaks since the 20th of August, and then there's 38,401 cases in the Kansas counties with 426 deaths. That's an increase of 1,545 cases since the last time KDHE reported on Friday. There's 150 total outbreaks, which includes 4,212 cases, 178 hospitalizations, and 62 deaths. The quarantine guidelines that we talk about every week have not changed. That's still a mass gathering of 500 or more outside of the state of Kansas. The CDC has dropped all international travel requirements, but we still fall under KDHE guidelines. So if you travel internationally, there's still some international travel that you have to quarantine for. We expect the KDHE to update that criteria hopefully later this afternoon, so we'll push that out in our daily sit rep sometime tomorrow. Other than that, Governor Kelly's press conference was pretty brief yesterday. One of the things she talked about was how bad this past weekend was and the significant increase of cases and deaths. And then she also talked about concerns for opening the K-12 schools. That's all I have for you this morning. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioner Hurst?
I really don't have any questions. I just saw that according to an email I received from, I believe it was Kansas Association of Counties, that 80 of the 105 counties have not followed the mandate with regard to mask wearing. So we don't know how that's working out, and I'm sure most of those are populations that have less population than we do.
I believe Karen or Adam, correct me on this statistic. I believe Reno County was in the top 8 counties with positive cases last week, I believe. Does that sound correct?
I don't have any idea, to be honest.
And I believe
That probably includes because of the
John,
reformatory.
probably with that group. But, obviously the Sedgwick, Johnson, and Wyandotte are the huge numbers at this point.
Yeah.
But when it got down to the top 8, we were included because of that. Commissioner Bush, do you have any questions of either Karen Hammersmith or Adam Weiershire?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. At this point in time, we'll entertain public comment for any items not on the agenda. If there's anyone in the audience, and I believe that we're going to have somebody, we need them to come forward to the podium, state their name and address, and limit your remarks. There's no one? Okay. Well, you standing back there, I felt like that we must have visitors this morning. Okay, and again, is there anyone that wants to speak on any item not on the agenda today? Okay, if not, we'll go on to determining additions or revisions to the agenda. Commissioner Hurst, do you have any additions or revisions you'd like to suggest?
I don't, but I believe probably county councilor
Okay,
or
we'll get to him. Commissioner Bush, any revisions or additions?
Not today. Thank you.
Okay, our county administrator, do you have any additions or revisions to add?
Yes, an executive session for attorney-client for 30 minutes with the county councilor and myself.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that after our public hearing, which I'm sure that we'll have to wait until 10 o'clock to do that. So we'll move things around a little bit to make that happen.
should we put the business items up there
Well,
before the
we'll-
public hearing if we have time?
Correct. I think if we get to that point, which it's obvious that we will, we'll go ahead with the business items and reports and then wait till 10 o'clock. As I understand, it's published, so we have to wait till 10 o'clock for the public hearing on vacating a portion of Mohawk Road. Okay, moving on, we'll go to the consent agenda. We have vouchers in the amount of $490,837.41. We have minutes for the month of July 2020 in the packet. And we also have an agreement between the City of Hutchinson and Reno County pertaining to the 2019 Iron Justice Assistance Grant Program Award. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I
So
would.
moved.
Bob did.
Mr.
I'll
Bush-
second.
Mr. Bush made the motion, and Mr. Hurst made the second. Randy, can you talk a little bit about what this grant is? I read the first part of it and didn't know exactly what we're doing here.
The JAG grant, the Justice Grant, is something the City of Hutchinson has applied for or received last year. And I believe there's only one in the county, one law enforcement agency that can receive that grant. This resolution is, I guess, and Joe could probably explain it better, but to show that Reno County was not given any of that money from the City of Hutchinson, even though there was a joint purchase of equipment. I believe that benefits both agencies. The federal regulations require this resolution.
Yes, this is the Burns grant. It's been annually for a number of years, and the City of Hutchinson applies for it, but by the regulations, city is required to share that proportionately with other law enforcement agencies that function in the same locale. So they've looked at the jail function and the court system and so forth as part of the criminal justice system, and traditionally about 30%, 31% of that money has been distributed to Reno County by the City of Hutchinson, and the city retains the rest of it. This is from the city attorney. Historically, that's what's happened. In 2019, the sheriff and the chief of police agreed that all of the proceeds would be used to buy rifles for the Joint Emergency Response Team, city and county emergency response team, and that's how that money was used. I think it was around $11,000 or something like that. So this is really, I think, for accounting purposes, if the city gets audited on this, it shows it's met its responsibility of conferring with the county and taking the county share of it into consideration. The county gets $0 directly, but the county benefits from the equipment used for the emergency response team.
Okay. There's a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Sonic?
Yes. We will skip over item 8, which is the public hearing on the road, and move to item 9, which is the request by RCAT to move the transfer point from Walmart, from the mall to Walmart. Barbara, would you like to communicate with us on this issue?
Good morning, Commissioners. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at the proposal, and we have been working closely with Walmart for quite some time. We did a community assessment back in 2012 of our passengers to find out, first of all, where they would like to be picked up if we had bus shelters, and also the places that they wanted to go in a ranking order. And at that time, Walmart came out as the #1 location that they would like to go. And so we do have a route that goes to Walmart. In the time that RCAT has been in operation, which is 20 years now, and the time that we did the assessment, which was in 2012, our community has changed a lot. And so the traffic that we have into Walmart has changed greatly as well. We have the one route that goes by the front doors of Walmart every hour. And I'm sure you probably realize what kind of foot traffic there is in and out that entrance, as well as vehicle traffic, and that's changed a lot as well. So we have been, again, in contact with Walmart for a number of years and looked at different opportunities to change what we're doing out there, but things just never coalesced until this year. And Walmart was in favor of having us move to the location that we've indicated on the map, which is in the northwest corner, to have the buses meet there together. And this achieves a couple different things, but first of all, it creates greater safety for the passengers and the buses, because as the buses go through that entrance, we have had accidents. We've had people in vehicles who have not seen the bus and hit the bus. We have had a lot of near misses where people are on their phone and they're walking either into the entrance of Walmart or coming out of it, and they almost walk into the bus. And so it's just, for the bus, it is a safety issue. For the passengers, it's a matter of safety for them in that they don't have to transfer from one bus into another bus to get where they need to go. So they have less exposure to the elements. Right now, we are meeting together at the mall, and we've, again, done that for 20 years. So if you are on any route other than the one that goes to Walmart, you have to change buses. And so if you are in a mobility device, or you are using a walker, that causes you to have to get out of one bus and travel down the line to get onto the bus that will take you then over on into Walmart. And as you know, we get a lot of wind any given time of the year in Kansas, which for the people that are using walkers or mobility devices is it's not very pleasant. We also have the days where it's pouring down rain or snowing or just cold. and people have to transfer to get onto that bus to get over on into Walmart. Moving the transfer point into the Walmart parking lot will get people to Walmart, and they will not have to change buses. So we have applied for a permit from the city. They have issued that permit. We will be taking out, I believe, 19 parking stalls, which was an acceptable number for the city. And Walmart has been very supportive. They wanted to do this. Of course, we've been in conversation with them. We intend to do this simply with paint. And so we would just be marking it off with paint and putting a reserve for our cat buses onto that.
So would each of your buses then drop off at Walmart?
They will all be at Walmart, and so then passengers would walk from the area to the store.
Oh, okay. And you don't feel that that's too far to walk? That's a big parking lot.
It is a big parking lot. It is very acceptable in transit world, I'm going to call it, to have people need to access their final destination by walking. So we actually think that people will be happy about the fact that they're not going to have to transfer.
Okay, so the one bus that drops off at Walmart will still drop off in front?
No, we will all be
You'll all be in this area?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Hurst, you look like you have a question.
Well, I was just wondering if there is, what distance do they have to walk then? Is it very far or?
300 feet.
I don't have feet. I'm sorry. I don't know that. And I brought Kevin.
How many steps? Barbara, you stepped off
I
before.
do. It's true.
How about that?
It's not 10,000. I brought with me today Kevin Kinzel. Kevin is our transportation coordinator, and he's worked very hard on this project.
Sure.
Kevin, do you have an idea of the distance?
I'm just curious
Yeah.
and the reason I asked that question would there be a need in the future and working with the city and Walmart as far as putting in a protected area to wait so the buses wouldn't have to wait for that walk out from Walmart in inclement weather? That was what I was leading up to.
That is our hope. This is a first step.
Okay.
And so that is definitely our hope, that we would be able to put a shelter in that location. And again, we're not there yet, but that is something that we would hope to do.
That was
Yeah.
the answer I was getting at,
Yes, yeah.
rather than the steps. So
Right, yeah.
So is it a known time that this transfer occurs
Yes.
within buses?
Yes.
So the people that you've brought would know what time to be back to get onto their bus?
Yes. At this point in time, we have used the mall as our endpoint for the outgoing leg. And so it takes a half hour to get from the transfer station to travel. Each of the routes travel, and then they meet together at the mall. All the buses meet together at the half hour. And so then people are able to, again, transfer buses and get on to the next leg of their journey.
Well, Commissioner Bush, you have any questions of Barbara Lillyhorn this morning?
No, I don't. I think it's an excellent idea, and I hope that it works out.
Okay, is this an action item to approve? I assume. Why don't we make it that?
okay, I would move to approve the suggestion for a transport port moving to the northwest corner of the Walmart parking lot, as requested by the Barbara Lillyhorn, the Aging Public Transportation Director.
Is there a second? Did you second that, Commissioner Bush?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Summers.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners, and we invite you to come and see it when we get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you both for being in attendance. Okay, we'll move on to the county administrator report this morning. Mr. Partington?
Okay. Kind of had a few items to just let you know about. I did email, this is kind of the list I emailed to you, so I'll mention them here. That last week met with David Reed, the chief curator at the Reno County Museum. And he came to the courthouse, had the idea, and I think this had been discussed in previous months or years, about a possible display somewhere on the first floor of the courthouse to kind of, for the visitors to the courthouse, let them see a little bit of Reno County history, and then maybe that would be their, I guess, gateway to maybe start visiting some of the museum.
Mm-hmm.
But this would be probably in the area that's just behind the security spot on the interior of the small walls of the first floor by one of the columns. That'd be one area, maybe in a hallway if there's space. It's about a 2 by 4 by 4 foot display.
Oh.
He hasn't told me exactly what it is. He hasn't gotten back with me. Just wanted to see, kind of mention it to you guys and see if there was any concerns. I had talked with Joe O'Sullivan about this, and we obviously would want some kind of agreement with liability. We don't want to be held liable for any damage to the display case or any theft that might take place, which shouldn't. We have plenty of cameras in the courthouse, but if it did happen, we wouldn't want to be held liable.
Mm-hmm.
And
And the way you're understanding, this is going to be a fairly small display, it sounds like.
yes, that was the way that David explained it to me. Until we see like maybe a sketch or
Yeah.
sample, I don't have exact details.
Well, my only thought on that, and maybe other commissioners have thoughts, if we're going to do this, I guess I'd hope that we'd put it in a position that it would catch as much traffic as possible.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to put something like that back in the corner and so nobody walks by it because, but I think that'd be a good idea to show some of the history of Reno County here.
A couple of the other spots that he was looking at is right in this hallway right here between the county commission door and the hallway down to municipal court. In that hallway, or over on the other side where I think the treasurer may have used to be, between where district court is now and the human resources desk, somewhere in that area.
Okay, so we'll hear more from you on that later.
I would also like to suggest to the commission that we, and Randy, that we look at maybe, as I was walking out there, we look at maybe some potential of hang a picture or 2 or 3 up on the wall there that shows some history.
Good point. Maybe that'd be in coordination with our painting project.
Approved by Randy.
Well, and we're getting ready to paint out there, I think.
Yeah.
So. Okay, next item, sir.
Okay, wanted to let you know that Commissioner Bush and myself will be in a meeting later today with EMS, the hospital. The EMS billing right now, they're the amount that we're being charged through the month of June billing that we've paid. We have a July bill that hasn't been paid yet that I believe is $177,000, but through June there's $244,883 left in budget authority for this year. So, and that's the entire year we had budgeted 1.4 million. We've already spent 1.15 million. And their revenue is down, their contractual costs are up for what the hospital EMS is explaining, so our costs have gone up. So we're going to be over budget, but we need to look at what the options are. The agreement that has been in place for a number of years states that if it's more than the budget amount, that there needs to be a discussion between the hospital and the county. Commissioner Bush and I will begin that discussion this afternoon on a
Mhm.
Zoom meeting. And I sent
So at this
everyone
point
the
in time,
attachments.
at this point in time, you, you do not know why revenue's down and costs are up, and that's the point of the meeting, is to better understand that.
Right. In initial conversations with Dave Johnson, the revenues being down, some of the calls, some of the transports and transfers are lower, and maybe because of COVID, or that was the comment that they are COVID related, maybe the less calls, or some of the transfers. But yes, I will give more details later today. In the application for the CARES Act money, there's $500,000 for EMS COVID-related expenses. So that will be something we look into to see if this is something we can help cover with that money. The additional amount that we're being charged if it is tied to COVID.
Okay, well, I know that Commissioner Bush has worked all during his term on this issue, and probably knows more than any of the other commissioners about how that works. It would seem like to me that if cases are down, that they would be able to mitigate some of their expenses with staff and so forth, and I'm sure Commissioner Bush will raise those questions of why costs are up and if revenue's down. So, and you plan on then reporting back to us from that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. Then in the CARES Act application, part of the county money, there was $50,000 for rental space and additional space needed by the health department to help staff spread out more. There's 50 employees, around 50 employees in that small building. They're on top of each other, so we wanted to spread, get a little bit more social distancing for the COVID. The discussion led to looking at the building just directly north across the street from the health department, which I believe had been used by youth services in the past. It does have some connections, internet connections and utilities and office spaces. It would be $1,000 a month, and CARES Act money would cover it through December. The owner wants a 1-year lease, so the remaining 8 months or all of next year would have to be budgeted or taken care of in the budget by the health department, and I believe they have the money. In my preliminary discussions with Megan and Karen, I'll talk with them a little more to see what their long-term need is for space. Joe has looked at the agreement, made some suggestions of changes before it would come to the county commission for approval. I'm just kind of giving you an update or letting you know in advance that this is something we're working on, and we'll be bringing that to the.
What about office furnishings and that kind of budget? What would that entail?
That would be covered with this CARES Act money, the $50,000, because just the rental would only be for the rest of this year. Would only be $4,000. The rest would be to furnish and get everything prepared for that space.
But aren't you probably saying that if this is done, it's probably an ongoing thing and not just a temporary thing?
Yes, that's what we're looking at before we actually make that move. Obviously, bring that back to the commission for a decision. But I believe this has been in probably something to look at for a while, and for the long term, that the space the health department
needed.
is.
I can't believe they have 50 people in that building now. That's
and not all of
amazing
them
to me.
work 8 hours a day in there. I mean,
Right.
Some do some remote work, but it's still a very condensed area for the amount of people they have, the amount of services they provide in that building. So long term, there is additional office space needed for the health department.
So would the group that would move over there be a group that does not meet with the public, so that you don't have to have two public
It would
entrances?
Right. It would be the environmental health and child care licensing would be the people that would move over there. They do have some meetings with the public, but usually on site, not at their office. They would go on site to look at maybe a septic system or a child or daycare facility. So they need office space, but they won't deal with the public in their office as much as the rest of the health department.
Do other commissioners have comments on this item?
I do. For one, in looking at long term, and since the personnel that would be in and out of the office and not meeting a lot of people in the office, I would suggest that we look at the possibility of utilizing this first floor of the courthouse. I think there's space here that we could utilize, and yes, we might have to buy some partitions and so forth for office, but I think that would be, we've been looking for the last 3.5 years, at something to utilize this open space that we're already paying heat and air for, and we have the ability here to utilize the first floor area. I just throw this out for consideration, that this might be a good opportunity to utilize this rather than spending money that we'll have to budget for in another year or two. I think that's a pretty good idea to look at, because we have the space. We've been looking for something to utilize this, and I think that could save us some money.
Well, by reacting to your suggestion, it's going to sound like I'm for spending money and not saving money, and that's not where I'm coming from. But I guess my feelings are that open area of the courthouse out in front of us is not very well situated for office areas. In my opinion, there's some higher uses for that space in the future out there. I guess before you come back to us with that contract, you should take a look at what Ron is suggesting, see if that works. I'm not sure that I want to present my thoughts today on how that space out there should be used in the future. It's a beautiful area. The aesthetics of the area should be maintained, and I'm not sure that we're going to do that if we put a bunch of dividers in there and cut it up. But I do see your point, Commissioner Hurst, in regard to future monies and so forth. So I think it should be a consideration of the county administrator when he makes this recommendation of which space works best. Commissioner Bush, thoughts on this item?
I guess I would disagree with. I guess I agree with both of you in the sense that I would like to see that space used, and it's just a drain right now. I think on the courthouse, but I do think that again with Commissioner Sellers, let's take a look at all of our options and see what makes the most sense, because I don't know that we're saving money by trying to turn it into office space. So I'd like to see more information from the county administrator.
Is parking an issue with this idea of moving across the street? That would alleviate a little bit of parking out here in the Northeast.
They probably would park the same spot. I don't know.
Really?
That, just because it's literally across the street. I don't know.
I just assumed there would be parking at the new office.
I have not looked to see
Okay.
if there's any behind it or.
I think there's a few in front, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 spots.
Okay, other items, Randy, this morning from your report.
I believe there was an email to Commission last week about the census, the 2020 census. I just wanted to bring that up, that we do have, I did have Kansas Counts census data for all the cities in Reno County about the amount of federal funding that each city could miss out on if the census is not, excuse me, completed by everyone and accurate. So it's kind of a request for the commission to mention and for the public to take part in the census 2020 so that everybody's, the entire population is accounted for in Reno County for all the city's benefits and the counties. The Reno County on our social media sites, Facebook and Twitter, will be running some posts to remind people to take part in the census, and that I believe they have through September to complete this. And so every couple days there's going to be a different post on our social media mentioning this. I didn't know if you guys had any questions on that.
Well, I'd just like to add to your comments that I hope the citizens that haven't completed their census will be willing to. I know there's census workers out there trying to gather this data. I've heard that some of the response is more negative this year than in past censuses, that people don't want to give out information. I think I can kind of understand that attitude, but it is so important that we get everybody counted so that we can apply for the federal funds that are available to us based on population counts. So this is critical to our future funding, and I would hope that people would understand that. I'm not sure that they do. They take their personal concern that they're getting out information that they don't want out. But any way we can encourage people to finish that would be best for the future of the county in the next 10 years.
I 150% agree with that, Commissioner Sellers. It's very important for Reno County. And that's generic. It all pools together. It's not associated with your individual names. And maybe we need to send out or forward some of the information that we get from the census people from the state to the all the newspapers here in Reno County, the weekly ones too, that says we highly encourage you to do this. We need it.
You know, a suggestion was made to me, and I forgot this. And Randy, you might follow up on this, is that I know the county has several traffic signs that we use for traffic control, the electronic traffic signs where we close the road temporarily or something. And I also know the city has the same things. I think maybe we ought to suggest to the city manager and use our signs in specific areas trying to market this concept. I think people will read that more than this group's not reading the newspaper, Ron. And so if we can stick it right out in front of them, it might be beneficial.
Maybe even encourage some of those private companies that have the electronic signs to help us all out.
That's true.
That put this on there, as well as the schools.
Very good points. Some of the schools have that, and we might talk to at least 308 and what's Bueller?
309 and Bueller. And
because these dollars affect them too.
Yes.
And I think that's a very good suggestion that we should get their help on marketing this.
Because it definitely affects school districts.
And some of the funding, and this is from Count Me in Hutch, their display, but they got from the census website, is funding that goes, federal funding goes to essential programs like school lunches, Head Start, early Head Start, supplemental nutrition assistance, foster care, low-income home energy assistance, Medicaid, Medicare, and health center programs, and other items. But for the city of Hutchinson, over a 10-year period, for every household that's missed in federal funding, it costs there's a loss of about $48,927 in federal money. For Bueller, as a comparison, for that same 10-year period, each household missed is $50,384. And then even some of the smaller communities, Abbeville would be $45,595. So it affects all the cities in the entire county. Reno County's, as of last week, the amount that has completed the census survey is 69%. So
That's not enough.
it's not enough.
Okay.
There's only 1 month left.
Okay, Randy, will you let me know if you need my or the other commissioners' help of getting this spread? I think your thought about the school district is excellent. They've got electronic signs. Use the county and city signs. It's as important to the city as it is the county.
Yes.
And we need to reinforce this effort as much as we can.
And the city of Hutchinson does have a committee, a census committee working on things. So I will be in touch with, I believe the planning director, Ryan, over there is working on this. So I'll contact him about what they're doing with the city and how we can help.
I'd like to see a copy of that information so I have that accurately so we can explain to people as we go out what it means.
With school starting, the signage in front of schools is really important.
It is.
Just an example, I was at Lincoln School on a church project Sunday, and they have an electronic sign right in the front of the school, and if this type of information's put out, it could help a little bit.
It's just like the reason I thought about that was because there by the city building in South Hutchinson, USD 309 has a electronic.
Very good idea. Other items, Randy?
Yes, I was wanting to see, I believe it was last
You've got
week.
12 more minutes
I
to
have
stretch
12
this
minutes,
out.
okay.
Yeah.
On the nonprofit and private school part of the CARES Act money, that grant application, Gary, John, and then some others are working on the application. It was mentioned, I believe, at the last meeting, you guys wanted more detail, and obviously the county commission as a whole makes that final decision of what gets accepted as the grants. Is there any specific, other than hundreds of pages for each applicant, that you want specific details that you're looking for that you would have access to at the beginning, if that makes sense? What we were thinking in conversations with Gary was, obviously a summary and a high level list of what the
Money to be used for.
what it's going to be used for, or
Well,
you want specific.
I think brevity's better than multi-pages. So I would suggest that from each applicant that their application is as complete but as brief as possible. I think your committee that's doing this, and then also the commissioners, know the need of all these groups, and so I don't think we have to have a long oration about what the Salt Museum does for the community.
I agree.
Are you still planning to take those applications through the community foundation?
I believe the community foundation has what they use for their grant, their application for grants, or I forget what it was called for during this COVID crisis, a similar type of application on
That
their
might
website.
simplify the.
It'll change to cater to the county money, but it'll be something that'll be an application that nonprofits and will have already had experience with, so it won't be brand new to them, because it's going to be a short timeline in September for them to apply.
Okay, and could you update us on the, I don't know the initials,
CDBG COVID grant.
Thank you.
Right, we're still waiting on, there's, SCED has a lot of grants that they're administering. There was some change in who was our contact person at SCED. So we're waiting, and then when the state wanted more detailed information, I believe on people's tax returns and their income from the previous year, we were still waiting for some of the businesses that originally applied to get that information back to us. So I believe we still have 5 or 6 businesses that probably qualify. Once we get verification from SCED that all the information needed according to the state of Kansas has been received, then we'll be ready to call that committee for a meeting. It's been delayed.
Okay, I
longer than we
understand
wanted.
that you're saying the delay is not due to us, but it's due to somebody else. But SCED needs to realize that if you don't help some of these people, they might not
Right.
be there for help by the time you get around to it.
Right.
You know, I was hoping that we'd be done with that by now. So,
We were too.
I think they made some changes too to that deal that affected the quickness with which information was needed.
okay. Okay, Randy, does that conclude your items?
The only other thing is I just kind of, and I mentioned in general with the landfill project, which will be brought to you guys with more information. I just wanted to give you notification that we're looking at trying to do a fiber connection directly to the landfill from the courthouse instead of the point-to-point, which is satellite, or it's from a tower to a tower. That's less reliable, so the fiber connection is far more reliable. It would also connect to the maintenance building, as everything's needs network connection now, and maybe at some point connect to Public Works, but that's not part of this project. Originally, we thought about it as CARES Act to get Public Works, so that the people we talked about at the health department maybe could move to Public Works building, but that is not feasible, practical with CARES Act money, because with that money, that 12.6, everything has to be substantially spent or built by the end of December. And there's no way to go under the river and under the railroad tracks in that amount of time.
Commissioner Sellers, with Idea Tech running isn't that a fiber optic line right there through it that they're having to change? Is that an option?
It would be owned by a company, and we would be at their will for service and fees and the size of the fiber. And
So
it's
you'd
better
rather
to own it. It's better to
okay.
have our own.
All right.
Even if the connection that we get to our fiber is, whether it's through Cox Communications or Idea Tech, having our own fiber line is better.
Okay. I just
Okay.
thought I'd ask.
I had previously asked that.
Oh, okay.
But,
All right.
Thank you for bringing it up. Okay, Commissioner Hurst, do you have items or reports this morning?
I don't believe I do.
Commissioner Bush, do you have items to discuss this morning with the commission?
No, I would just tell you that I'm looking forward to presenting more information on the EMS situation and getting that back to you and figure out where we're at with that.
Okay, well, thank you for doing that. I can understand how usage is down, but if usage is down, there should have been some cost control there too. So, give them.
Well, but
Commissioner Sellers, I might ask.
but
Go ahead.
just real quick, though, let me jump in. But you also have to remember that they staff their units for what they commonly expect.
I understand.
And so they have kind of a hard cost there, where they'll have 2 or, in the larger stations, 3 EMS. If they don't get any calls, then we don't get any revenue. But you can't really send anybody home to save that cost.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn more about that today.
Okay, appreciate that. You have no other items, Mr. Commissioner Bush?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, I might just comment, and I think Commissioner Hurst has already stated this in part of the public health information this morning, so I'm being redundant. But with school starting it's so important to keep those schools functioning.
Yes.
And, you know, we can argue and we can be presented facts on both sides of the mask issue. And there's appears to be very, very good facts on both sides of the mask issue. But in my opinion, at this point in time, if masks help at all, which I just read an article this morning in the paper, they help some, we need to do those things to help our kids stay in school. So I am, as a citizen, am willing to participate to try to control the cases such that we can keep these schools open. And that's just kind of a personal situation there, but I think we've just all got to work together to help each other out in this. And at the first, we were helping old people so that they would not, or older people.
Thanks a lot,
Older
Ron.
people.
I appreciate that. Thank you, since I've got a little longer tooth than you do, a little bit.
All of us older people, such that we wouldn't get the virus. But I think at this point in time, the things that we can do to help keep school open, and the fact that I am hearing from teachers that they don't believe masks in school is going to be a problem. They think that they can handle that issue, and so let's hope it gets started well. Okay, it's 3 till 10. Can we have the public hearing now?
So 3 more minutes, a 3-minute break, a recess.
Okay,
for
we're
3
going to
minutes.
recess for till 10 o'clock. We'll come back. Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting. We're waiting for Commissioner Hurst to return, and then we'll go to our item 8. Commissioner Bush, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. We're waiting on Commissioner Hurst to return to the room.
3 minutes went fast.
Yeah, it sure did. Okay, at this point in time, we will have a public hearing for the purpose of considering a petition to vacate a portion of Mohawk Road. I need a motion to open the hearing, please.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, for our discussion this morning, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our county administrator, who might want some other people to speak.
Okay, Commissioners, this is obviously the public hearing for the closure or discussion of Mohawk Road out by the landfill. And I'll turn it over to Megan, and the engineers are here from SCS.
Okay, so Megan, would you review the project? We were at the site last week and visited the site, so we're familiar with the site, but briefly tell us why you're wanting to vacate the road.
Sure. I'm Megan Davidson, Reno County Landfill Director. The project that we are looking at doing with this Mohawk Road closure would be a new scale house as well as a customer convenience center that is going to be directly across Mohawk Road to the east, which is the ground that is owned also by Reno County. And with this project, we are going to be excavating tons of dirt, clay, anything we need for cover material. And there'll be big scrapers that'll be running across this road back and forth, as well as other heavy equipment as well that goes with it. The road that we're looking at closing is from the Clark and Mohawk intersection to the south at the half-mile line of our property line. So both sides of the road are owned by Reno County, and we are looking at not doing a landfill across the street, but it's going to be the project itself with the HHW Convenience Center and our scale house that we will be moving to and doing construction in the next year.
Okay, a question I have, it was asked at the site last week, and maybe the engineer, Ms. Monty could respond, or Megan, you could, that somebody suggested that at the half-mile line that turnaround area be increased in circumference. Has that been addressed?
So currently we have, it's a 30-foot radius. Steve,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
The reason for the 30-foot radius, there's right-of-ways on both sides. If we go any further out than that, we have an issue with right-of-way issues on both sides of the road. Was the reason for the biggest we could make the circle radius for a 30-foot circle radius turnaround.
And somebody that's smarter than me, tell what a 30-foot radius can accommodate. Can it accommodate a semi?
No, it wouldn't accommodate a semi. It could.
You want to come up here and address us, please?
I'm Steve Linehan with SES Engineers. 30-foot radius would accommodate a passenger car, a truck, being able to just turn around if they were to happen to go all the way to the end. It could also be able to accommodate like an articulating grader, which is the point in being able to have that grader to be able to turn around. So that's that, and the right of way is the reason, because you have 33-foot right of way on either side of the center line. And that's why we came up with the 30-foot radius.
Okay, and is that, if you got 30 foot on each side of the road, and you've got the road, it seems like you've got more than that to work with. I'm missing something here, Steve.
You mean if we were to move the entire cul-de-sac north into the property? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's what you're getting at.
Talking about the width of the right of way
The width of the right-of-way is 33 feet
on either side of the center line.
on either side of the center line.
Okay, so you've got, from the center line.
From the center line.
But
Okay,
we
so could you not go north to our property, and I think this is where you're coming from, and make that bigger?
That is a possibility. Yeah, we could move everything north onto the property, because then with Mohawk vacated, then the whole turnaround could be within the Reno County property, sure.
I think I appreciate you asking that, because that's where I was headed with the fact that it could go north and make it
Well,
larger.
And I guess the other thing would be very, very adequate signage to that intersection to the south of,
Right. So yeah, there would need to be adequate signage to the south. You know, the other issue I see with moving it onto the property is the easement allocation and the platting, because I believe you'd have to replat that to be able to go outside of the right of way that people could actually use.
To me, that should have been thought of before this.
well, okay, now I don't understand why platting would have anything to do with creating a turnaround on our own property.
Because you're expanding the right of way, so you would have to show that.
But haven't we given up the right of way when we put it on the old land and vacated the property?
So they'd be coming on the personal property at that point.
Okay.
You vacate
Yes,
the road, then
that's
it's
true.
personal, then it's
Yes, that's personal.
I'm not for sure when we closed Clark Road, and correct me if I'm wrong, on the intersection where we closed Clark, where is the barricades that we have across. I don't know what the radius is of that turnaround. I know that there's a farmer's field that they can turn, and get on Clark Road side. I'm not for sure if it's equivalent to where we are now on Mohawk with 30-foot radius.
When you vacate the property, isn't it also true that when you vacate a property, a road right of way, that then the land ownership goes back to the landowner on both sides?
It already is owned by us on either side. You've just taken away the easement.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I know that's a little bit complex there, but I think it's worth thinking about. Okay, are there other items that the commissioners would like to hear from staff or from the engineers regarding this before I open this up to the public for input? Okay, if not, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this item during the public hearing? Please come to the podium, state your name and address. And I'm always used to saying you only have 5 minutes, but in this case, you've got as long as you need to discuss it with us.
Jason Tedder, 4310 West Blanchard. I guess the closest resident to this. I'm against closing the road. I think we should try to maybe make a shoe fly around it. I know, or even temporary closing the road to excavate the dirt, move it across, and then reopen the road. Because to build the cell, maybe you're going to do a month of excavation to stockpile the material on the other side of the road, and then we can open the road back up for public use. One of the problems with the turnaround is that's going to be a perfect site for someone to come down my road, turn down there, and go dump their trash. Megan does do a good job of picking up the trash. I'm just bringing that to your attention. That's going to be more.
Citizens aren't always
No,
good citizens. Are they?
I live there. I know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I say, the other thing is I hope the garbage that we're taking from the other counties, the surrounding counties, is charging enough to be able to afford this whole project. Because if we weren't taking their garbage, the footprint of the dump could stay where it's at, and that would also prolong our life of the landfill we have now. So, by taking the other counties' trash, we're using up our space.
Jason, I've raised that point, and other commissioners have raised that point, and if I'm not mistaken, they're still doing a study on exactly what we should be charging for the other people. And your point's well made that, the revenue is nice to get from the other counties, but if that's using up our resources faster, it might not be enough revenue to offset,
Right.
the fact that we're using the landfill faster. I think your point's very well made there, that we need to be charging the other counties enough, and that point is a delicate point.
Well, yeah. Like I say, it's unfortunate that we got to take other counties' trash, and then if we can't get compensated to, to have this larger project, hopefully those other counties is enough to do this. So it's not costing Reno County taxpayers to take others' trash.
Correct. Thank you for that, and don't leave if you're not done. But Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't you supposed to be coming back to us with that final numbers on what we should be getting from other counties?
We are doing a rate study at the current time. I mean, right now, out-of-county trash is less than 15% of what we receive in. Reno County trash is 85% to 88% trash that comes in. And we are working on SCS with a rate study at this time to see where our rates need to be, where we need to look in the direction of, user fees, tipping fees, what the out-of-counties pay, where we're at with all of that. So, yes, we will be coming back to you again.
Okay.
Here in the next couple months.
What is approximate general revenue from other counties that we're taking in trash? I believe you've given us that figure before.
Anywhere in a year's time, and our main counties are Harvey County, Kingman County, Stafford County, Rice County, and McPherson does a little bit of special waste, and they generated right around the $900,000 to $950,000 a year of revenue.
Okay.
I'd like to go back a little bit more on this cul-de-sac, if I might. Now, maybe this doesn't have that much to do with the closing the road, but I think it does have. Are we agreed that once we vacate the road, that goes back to the property owners, and that we won't it'll be really fairly easy to increase that cul-de-sac on the county's property, because all you're doing is you're adding dirt there
What
primarily.
about drainage on either side of the road? Is there a drainage issue?
Yeah, there would be, and that's one thing I want to bring up, that is there enough land between the actual side of that cell that you have there that you're going to increase size to curve that just a little bit, the drainage that's coming off there now, so you could make a cul-de-sac?
The current design that we have, there is drainage on those plans that we have to where it would accommodate to where the drainage needs to drain properly.
Okay.
Commissioner Hurst, explain why you feel that needs to be larger to be adequate. Are you suggesting that even with adequate signage, we'll still have somebody not that needs a bigger radius?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know, even a twin screw truck, it's a little hard to back once you've made a really gross error. Like you said, all citizens don't follow directions, and once you've made that critical error and come to find out you can't turn around, it's quite a ways to back semi up a half a mile.
Certainly. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Tedder, did you want to say something else, please?
Well, that's
Please come to the microphone so
You might
people
you-
listening at home and people that will listen to this meeting later can hear you.
Well, I was just going to agree with Ron here. 30 foot, like I say, that's my business. I own semis and trailers, and even harvest guys, you're not going to be able to pull down there and get a load out of the field and go down there and turn around. So
Ron, to the people
Ron's on.
that own those 2 quarters south of this, we're doing them a favor to give them a better turnaround.
That it'll definitely help.
Can't they turn around in the field where they are?
Makes
Some
sense.
some do, some don't.
Yeah.
Some farmers don't want you in the field. They don't want you rutting it up. Like I say, that's my business. Some farmers out there say, yeah, pull in the field. The other ones, they get really particular if you pull in their field.
And it's muddy out. You've got to run a grain cart or a combine half a mile then, and I think that it's really accommodating if we can do this to make it useful.
Okay, well, you can bring those items up after the public hearing. Okay, are there anybody else? Don, did you want to say something in regard to this during the public hearing?
I'd like to make one comment.
Your name?
Don Britton, Public Works Director. As far as a cul-de-sac, if you're extending that for public use, then you're not really closing that portion of the road. Cul-de-sac for private use is one thing, but if you make that wider than a right-of-way, I do believe that has to be replatted. You can't just go in there and make the right-of-way wider on a public road. And if you extend that public road, cul-de-sac, it's still a public road. So that needs to be looked into a little bit deeper.
Well, it's not a public, technically it's not.
But if the public road ends and the public is using the cul-de-sac, so is that a private cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That answers that question.
Okay, we got that
Good
solved.
point.
Okay.
Good point
Okay.
to bring up. I hadn't thought of.
To expand the cul-de-sac, where it's originally planned, you'd have to acquire additional right-of-way.
Well, but if the engineers can work on this issue and move it to the north, we could use our right-of-way.
Of course. Our
Okay.
own land, right?
Right. Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to make a comment during the public hearing? If not, we'll close the public hearing and then the commission can visit about this issue. Any additional comments? If not, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I don't believe this needs to be discussed. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Summers?
Yes. Okay, now we'll take up the item of the issue of actually vacating the Mohawk Road, which is up to the county commission at this point. For the public's information, the county commission did have a viewing of this area last Tuesday, I believe, at 11 o'clock. We had Commissioner Hurst and myself and Don Britton representing the county. We had, I believe, 4 farm interests that was out there, including Mr. Tedder that's here this morning in the audience. I guess before discussion, we need to at least see if there's a motion to vacate this portion of Mohawk Road.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes. Okay. There's a motion on the table then to vacate Mohawk Road. Would any of the commissioners or I believe at this point it's only a commissioner's ability to speak to the item. Any of the commissioners like to speak to this item at this point in time?
This is Commissioner Bush's territory, I believe, his representation. I do farm in the area, although not directly. Doesn't impact me directly. I've looked at several options on this, including stop signs, which I originally thought was an extremely good idea. I looked at what Mr. Tedder said regarding shoe fly around it. I do not believe that consistently that there's 75 equipment going to pass this road every day. Maybe there might be 10. I don't know. But I think that's a pretty high figure for looking at it constantly, which I thought maybe stop signs might work. Then I looked at a couple other things. One was that the cross traffic, even if you would move this to the east, to the east and leave that road open, you have considerably amount of both individuals, pickups, trailers, semis, hauling trash from, as you said, out of county. You have twin screw trucks that hauling trash consistently across, and if you go out there some days when it's really busy, it's really busy. I've seen cars backed up a quarter of a mile on Mohawk Road getting in. So you've got all that traffic crossing that road. Then there was one other item that really posed a problem for me in keeping it open, and that was getting drainage from the west to the east after those ponds are set up, and that was including either doing a box bridge or some type of bridge, because I don't believe that you can put culverts in there big enough to handle the water on a decent rain. And so that's why on those points that I do not believe in closing roads, but I'm unfortunately I'm going to have to agree with this one.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Commissioner Bush, do you have comments?
Well, I think Ron made some good points. I just looked at, we're talking about a very light traffic. We're talking about safety issues. If we were to keep the road open, I believe that we had a quote of at least $340,000 in order to keep the road open, and it just didn't make a lot of sense in terms of using government dollars. I understand it's an inconvenience for a number of individuals in that area. I do think that's the safest and the best plan for the county.
Okay.
I might make one other comment,
Sure.
if I might, and that would be that I absolutely believe that we have to put a larger cul-de-sac down there at the end of the road on our property, because that's not going to work. 30-foot radius isn't going to work.
Okay. I was quoted in the paper last week after our meeting that, and I probably said it this way, that I didn't mind spending the $340,000, and that's probably what I said. But what I meant is I didn't mind spending $340,000 to put the road around the new structure. One, if it worked, because we're talking about something that's going to be there for 50 years. And $340,000 for 50 years, if it would work, I didn't think was a terrible investment for the county. But saying that, after looking at the details and listening to staff and listening to the engineers, I don't think the road around there is going to work, because you're still going to have the cross traffic to the south of the graders and the interference of traffic. So I don't see that trying to go around the property and keep the road open is going to work. I don't think as Commissioner Hurst has said, I don't think stop signs are going to be effective. There's going to be a real problem there if we leave the road open. I'm like Commissioner Hurst. I really don't want to close the road. I would hope that we would do everything that we can within reason to ask our engineering group to see if we can't make that turnaround larger and come back to us and tell us why you can't, if you can't. I think for a 50-year situation to have that turnaround larger is important, just as Commissioner Hurst does. So I'll support the vacating of the road. I think it is going to cause some farm problems, but I think the problems of keeping it open and trying to have traffic going up and down there, not looking at graders and so forth, would be a tremendous confusion for the next 50 years. Again, I guess I'm so pleased as a county commissioner that we've got a location for a solid waste disposal that's going to last that long, because I've read in newspapers and heard on media counties that have had to look at this issue and deal with this issue, and if we've got something that's going to last that long, we really got a positive situation here in our present location. So with that, I'm supporting the fact that we vacate the road. Is there any other comments or discussion? The other thing I would like to note is I think the signage that's down there at that south road needs to be greater than what is just required. It needs to be very sufficient, and I think that's the county's responsibility to maybe, what's the name of that road, Commissioner Hurst?
Mohawk and
no,
Blanchard.
East-west.
I believe it's Mohawk and
I
Blanchard.
think we should have signage on Blanchard Road and signage at that intersection to keep anybody from making that turn. And that's signage greater than what's required by, what are those numerals you're always wanting to use with signage codes, Don? Yeah, I forget their code and put up a big sign about what's happening here. Is there any other comments before we take a vote on this?
Just one more. I would like the engineers and Megan to comment regarding that cul-de-sac, because to me that's highly important.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Monty Markley with SCS Engineers. I fully understand the concerns that you've got here related to being able to turn equipment around. Of course, that's why we do the public viewings, to make sure that when we do something like this, we've got all those factors considered. From an engineering standpoint, there will be considerations for drainage, things of that nature for having a turnaround on your property. But I think we can accommodate those things from an engineering perspective. And if there's additional costs, it's still much less than relocating a road or anything else. And again, if you look at it over that 50-year time frame, we'll work with Megan to incorporate those things. And then at that point, you can decide whether you want it to be public or private. But from an engineering standpoint, we can accommodate that and make sure we've got an appropriate radius in case somebody does make an inadvertent turn and they can safely turn around a large vehicle.
Probably won't happen but once a year. And that, from that standpoint, could I ask Mr. Tedder what his consideration might be? Is 50-foot radius, that's 100 foot. That's pretty good sized.
Yeah, that's anything bigger than,
Or 45 or...
Well, and I guess we need to go to somebody that understands the radius a truck needs.
There's standard
and maybe
radius
Don
for turning
can
those around.
help with that, but let's do what's necessary to make that happen and come back to us if it's not going to happen, certainly before the project moves ahead.
I don't see anything that's a fatal flaw for preventing that, gentlemen.
Steve, do you know the actual numbers that are needed?
I don't, but we can run the models, and I mean, we can run models for that. But like you had mentioned, the MUTCD can tell us, if we should put several more signs saying road closed, X amount of feet or whatever, so that they know well in advance, even if they're on that road.
Yeah,
I would think.
And I guess my suggestion is east and west on Blanchard do the same, so that you're just not getting to that corner and having to make a decision on what you're doing.
I don't know that a mile east of Blanchard is going to be much good right there at that corner of the Blanchard and Broad Acres. I don't think that would do much good, but I think because they can go on west a mile if they have to and come back around. So it's not like, but it's sure adequate signage
What
on
about signage information on
Blanchard at that intersection?
On Whiteside? That no access to landfill or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
It needs to be looked at.
Yes,
Mr. Tedder?
I would like to say if you put a sign out there on Whiteside Road saying no access to landfill, that would help tremendously.
I think that makes some.
And then I think just from West Blanchard on the Mohawk, if you put some serious signage there, that will keep people from going down there.
Thank you.
People kind of know that I'm a signage person, and I think signage works, and it's needed in this situation.
Yeah.
So, Joe, do you have a comment?
Yes, I've been talking to Don Britton and to Megan Davidson. It would be my recommendation that you not vote today to vacate the road as is legally described in the resolution and as we described it in the public hearing. We think that the turnaround point, the cul-de-sac you're talking about, needs to be a public road, not a combination of public road up to the half-section line and then private property from there on. And we need to perhaps decide just how wide that turnaround has to be, and if it needs to be wider than a 66-foot right-of-way, then the county can dedicate additional property for this particular purpose. So we could, I guess my recommendation is you table that vote today. We'll come back with a revised legal description for the cul-de-sac and remove that portion from the proposed vacations to leave it as a public road, and any other matters that might come up.
You're saying the area that we're trying to vacate today would not be the area that we're going to end up vacating?
Most of it would be, but it's not. Yeah, it's too much. I mean, it goes farther south than it needs to go, in effect.
Okay, can we do that without fouling up the timetable of your project? There seemed to be some concern about getting this thing moving.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
So let us show that Megan says yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, before I say I agree with you, do we have to have another public hearing once you identify this piece of ground?
No, because you're not expanding the territory that you're closing, you're reducing it.
Okay.
which you always have the option to do.
Okay, then, so is there a motion to remove the motion that we approve this?
Why don't we just vote on this motion and then add another motion? Does that sound proper?
No, he doesn't want us to vote on it.
You've moved to vacate this road as legally described. I don't think you want to, you want to deny that, I suppose, but then we'd have to start all over again. I think you just ought to move to withdraw the motion and then table the matter until next week.
Okay.
Will that be enough time next week to take care of this? Yeah, we'll have that for you next week.
I'll remove my second.
Mr. Bush, would you remove your motion?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so this item is tabled until next week.
I move to table this item until next week.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes. Okay, thank you all for being here very much. Thank you, Mr. Tedder, thank you for being here. I hope that we can do everything possible to alleviate the problems to the south of our property so that people know how to get to the landfill in the future. Okay, at this time, I believe we've gone through county commission reports. Is there any other items to bring to the commission before we go into executive session? Not, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
I move that this board recess into executive session for a period not to exceed 30 minutes for the purpose of conferring with the board's legal counsel on a privileged legal matter. At the conclusion of the session, there will be no formal decision required. The board will reconvene at regular session and adjourn for the day. For the purpose of the executive session, the county councilor, commission, and the county administrator will remain.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bush?
Oh.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Sellers?
Yes. We are adjourned.
I didn't put when we should start.